Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January 8th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. This is our organizational meeting today. We still have a dog to highlight.
Jim has
Microphone.
He's not giving it to you either.
I'll just scream.
Hi. How you doing?
Give me the mic. Every time he's trying to get up here.
Here, look at this way. Look at this way. Come here. Our featured dog this week is about a 1.5-year-old female boxer. She came from. It's female. It's a male.
I think it's a male, Ted.
It's a male cat. I didn't bother checking. I went by the paperwork he gave me, Jack.
Yeah.
Okay. Came from Dr. Wood at the Lorain Animal Clinic. Great personality, lovable. As you see, even went up to our administrator, Jim Cordes, has got to have a great personality to deal with somebody like him. Also this year on our meetings, I gave our cameraman, Hal, the locations where you can purchase your dog licenses at this year. So please, before January 31st, please purchase your dog licenses. The locations will be on graphics on the screen. Thank you.
Need some food. Looks pretty skinny.
His ribs are showing.
Yes. Our thought for the day: we seldom realize the value of good health or true friendship until they are lost.
Amen.
Resolutions?
Ready?
Ready.
Elect the president of the board for the year 2007.
I nominate Ted Kalo.
I second the nomination. Any further?
Good luck, Ted.
Can I vote no?
Have fun on the policy
Can if
committee
you
for solid
want
waste.
to.
That's all I have to say.
You can if you want to.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
That was unanimous.
Elect the vice president for the year 2007.
I nominate Betty Blair.
Second.
Anything further? Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Adopt the Robert Rules as parliamentary procedures to be followed at all board meetings during the year 2007.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Provide each Thursday of each month at 9:30 a.m. as regular board meeting days for 2007.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
And this one is provide, and I don't know, you guys can do this or not do this. It seems like we're running into a lot of things with public hearings on Commissioners' Days, and this might be easier. But it would only be for public hearings. Provide either the third Tuesday or 1, 2, or 4 of each month at 9:30 for Commissioners' public hearing. And if
Instead of
there's-
doing it on Commissioner.
Right. And
Okay.
if there's nothing, there won't be a meeting. I mean, for annexations or anything like that.
Why are we running into problems with having the public meetings on Thursday along with
This
the-
way, then that way, it'll also be considered another meeting for the Commissioners.
We've been around this corner before on these. I think that those are public meetings as long as we close an open one. Council, we talked about this before. I realize we're running out a number of meetings. I appreciate what you're saying, but if we have an annexation meeting that is concurrent to our board meeting, that should count as an additional public meeting. It's opened and closed, correct?
Well, I think this is an effort just to make it clearer so that there can be no question about it. Yeah, you can set up an annexation so that it is a separate meeting. But I think the effort here is to clarify that so that there can't be any dispute or disagreement that that is in fact a separate meeting and a separate hearing.
Is that a recommendation from the prosecutor's office, Jerry?
Was this something you put together? I mean, I
Yeah,
concur with the
Commissioner Blair talked
clerk's concept of trying to get this clarified so that she can clearly help calculate those meetings, and you don't have to go back at the end and try and figure out which ones were merged into the meetings and which ones weren't.
If we open, I guess the question is very simple. If we open an annexation meeting, the meeting is opened, the meeting is conducted, and then it's closed, does that count as a public meeting, even though we're in session with the commissioners? And this has been ongoing now for 3 years.
Right, and I think that's what the clerk is trying to do, is clarify it. If you're just going on through a meeting and then you just conduct it in the middle of your meeting as part of the meeting, there could be some contention that it is not a separate meeting. So in order to clearly set it distinct from the commissioner's meeting,
So we have
I
to have
think
a
that's
whole,
what we're trying to catch.
we have to have a whole separate day to make it distinct from the commissioners' meetings? I mean, the public comes up here. Normally, the people that come to see us also come and attend the public hearings that are here as a matter of doing our business. I think it's more convenient for the public to try to conduct our business pretty much all at the same time.
Well, should we do our public hearings if you want to continue same? I'm not particular either way. I don't know if we're going to incur additional costs for having Hal. do
Well,
our meetings.
that's another situation all itself. It costs us considerable amount to make sure that those things are taken care of, and it's necessary to keep the public informed, but we do try to do that all in one day, so we don't incur additional cost. You're talking about having a whole another separate day of video, another whole separate day of delivering, then you have to merge those things, and they're going to be broadcast. I'm just, again, I'm not actually confused, but what I'm confused with the process of why we can't count them as public meetings, and we've been doing this now off and on for a while. Whatever process that we need to develop to count those as public meetings, we need to do it for Thursdays. If it means that an annexation has to wait until after the meeting, or we open the annexation first before the meeting, so that we have a clear distinction, I think we should adopt a policy and a procedure to do
Our
that.
board says we'll start our meetings at 9:30 on Thursday, so they would have to go after then as a separate meeting.
Certainly, but we could have our annexations on Thursday at 9 o'clock, and then
Oh,
I
we
can
can
just,
start
I can
earlier.
just have somebody come in earlier to take care of the video. When that video is recorded is not necessarily that important, because it can be edited on to the end.
Or just have the public hearing after our commissioners' meeting.
Absolutely. The only problem we have with that is that we have a difficult time knowing exactly when we're going to end if the meeting's wrong, and that's where we run into a bit of a problem, and that's Madam Clerk's concern. If we're in session and we say we're going to have a public meeting at 10 o'clock for an annexation, and we're running over, the board is usually very considerate of other people's time to be here, and they'll stop their meeting and start that annexation.
That may be where we're coming into contention, as whether it's a separate meeting or the same meeting. The pleasure of the board. We'll spend all day talking about coming on
Well-
Tuesday.
Are you stuck on Tuesdays? I think Wednesdays would be better than Tuesdays, only because we have to be here for our agenda material.
And if you do
If we're
Wednesday,
gonna do an extra day.
what do you want to do about broadcasting any of the annexations, any sewer meetings, any of those things there?
Just have to have Hal come in an extra day, I guess.
Doesn't sound like we're really excited about having a separate day.
I was just concerned with the cost, that's all.
That's right.
I'm here every day for you, so.
Well, and that's the consideration.
We'll just forget about it.
What'd you say, Teresa?
We'll just forget about it at this point.
Well, I
Yeah, let's
think,
have some thinking, talk about it over the next week or 10 days. We can.
I just think the main thing is to segregate them more clearly, whether it's the same day or a different day. There has a tendency for them to merge together, and I think we want to set up something so we can clearly establish that these are separate meetings.
well,
That's fine.
again, you can have your annexations at 9 o'clock.
Well, but
And-
if it's, excuse me, but if it's a contentious one, it's not gonna be done in a half hour.
Right.
Well, I
And they
agree.
usually are.
Let's hold it for a couple of weeks. We'll take a look at it again, Teresa.
Authorize Commissioner Betty Blair, Ted Kayla, Lori Kukowski, and County Administrator James Cordez to utilize the county's Lorain Visa credit card for the year 2007, the amount not to exceed $5,000 each. Expenditures are work-related to include CCAO, NACO conferences, and for such items as food, lodging, telephone, gas, and oil, minor vehicle maintenance, and emergency repairs of county-owned or leased vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Authorize the President, Vice President, or member to execute all agreements, contracts, and documents on behalf of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Appoint a Commissioner as 911 Review Board Chair for the year 2007 and various members.
Do we have a,
Are
who's,
you currently on it,
Mm-hmm.
Lori?
you want
I
to
like-
begin?
Sure.
Okay, let's put Lori's name in there. Also move.
I'll second.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Appoint the President of the Lorain County Data Processing Board, Audit Review Board, Records Commission, Solid Waste Policy Committee, Board of Revisions, or an alternate, Lorain County Children's Service Families Council, or designee, and Safety Committee, or designee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Appoint Commissioner Blair as alternate Vince Urban to the Western Reserve Conservation District and Development.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Appointing 2 commissioners to WACA for the year, that should be 2007.
Yeah, let's go.
And I believe it's Betty and Ted right now, and Lori's Ted's alternate.
I'll move to keep it the same.
I'll second.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
I'll make this down.
Well, it appears we've had another orderly passing of the baton for power. Good democratic process. No bloodletting, no coups, definitely no hangings.
Authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cordez?
I have a few brief issues on hiring at Golden Acres that I'd like to discuss with the board, specifically their new hires. And we may talk about our ongoing negotiations. So I would request an executive session at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today to discuss those items as permitted under the Sunshine Law. Thank you.
We also have appointments to the Lorain County Community College Board, I believe, too, correct?
Correct.
Job and Family Services bills.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize the exemption of expenditures of $1,000 or less from prior certification requirements.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Approve payment for Victims of Domestic Violence Fund to Lorain County Safe Harbor, Inc., DBA Genesis House, for the amount of $32,097 as collected by Lorain County for the period July 1st, 2006 through December 31st, 2006, and collection and payment are pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 2303.201 and 3113.34 through 39.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Is that supposed to be 2006?
Yes.
Okay.
They're a year behind, like
All right.
6 months.
Did we get a second?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize the salary adjustments for various personnel at Lorain and Oberlin. It should also include Elyria. Municipal courts reflecting county's 2/5 share effective January 1st, 2007. I'll get this right by next week. For Lorain, administrative judge will be Judge Mihawk, a biweekly rate from $915 to $973.08. Presiding judge is Judge Elwell, biweekly rate from $973.08 to $950. Oberlin, Sandra Cohart, clerk of courts, biweekly rate at $816.08. Beth, I'm not sure. Qualina, bailiff, biweekly rate of $824, replacing Randall Widener. And Elyria, Eric J. Rothgary, clerk of courts, biweekly rate $1,451.54.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Establish compensation for law directors prosecuting violations for state law in municipal courts, ORC 1901.34C for the year 2007. Lorain, Elyria, and Oberlin will be $10,000 each. North Ridgeville and Amherst, $7,500. Avon Lake, Avon, Sheffield Village, Sheffield Lake, $5,000. South Amherst and Wellington, $2,000. Kipton, Rochester, Grafton, Vermillion, and LaGrange, $1,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Under Children and Families Council, amend resolution, should be 06-935, adopted December 14, 2006, approving the award of a grant in the amount of $7,500 from the Ohio Department of Health, and approve and enter into a research agreement with the Joint Center for Policy Research, Lorain County Community College, to promote the increase of useful knowledge relating to the planning assistance proposal House Bill 289, which is the annual plan that identifies local interagency efforts to increase child well-being in the county. Said amendment to this agreement is to include the third-party Lorain County Board of Mental Health.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Children's Services authorize various personnel in Lorain County Children's Services Department to utilize the agency's MasterCard for the year 2007, not to exceed $2,500, and the Shell Oil Gasoline credit card not to exceed $200. Authorize Dr. Crow and directors to utilize the agency's MasterCard not to exceed $5,000, and various agency workers in the amount not to exceed $20,000 for work-related items to include conferences, and for such items as food, lodging, transportation, telephone, gas, and oil, minor vehicle repairs, and emergency repairs of county-owned or leased vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can we just leave it in there as directors? My understanding is it has to be named specifically.
It is in the resolution, but I couldn't list them all. I mean,
Okay, I didn't see
There's
that
a lot of
resolution.
them.
Okay, great.
Pages and pages of things.
Thank you.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Under the engineer, certify the annual county highway system mileage in accordance with ORC Section 4501.04. For 2006, the mileage for 2005 was $269.68.
So moved.
269.68 miles.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Cordez, County Administrator.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Commissioners. Happy New Year to the Commissioners and the people that sometimes watch our meetings, more folks than I care to think about. I keep hearing about our meetings. I don't have any reports to give you this morning, so I will just defer to Mr. Ennis. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor.
We have no new litigation yet this year, so I don't have anything to report.
Commissioners report.
At the end of last year, we found out that we have additional carryover money, Mr. Cordez. You're not paying attention? We have some additional money available to us for this year that we weren't aware of. Are we going to look into how we're going to reappropriate that extra money? What we're going to do about it?
Well, that could be the pleasure of the board. The expenses still are what they are, and the revenue numbers still are what they are. In our request for a reduction in spending was to move our spending more closely with the revenue that the county was bringing in. Any changes to the proposed appropriation would increase our deficit spending. There was some additional revenue reported, and Lisa's here and she can explain that.
Before Lisa explains that, I have a question for you and Mr. Kalo. Together, you went to our bond, to New York to visit our bond rating companies, and I believe that there was a figure that they suggested to us that we keep at a minimum as
Correct.
a carryover. And what was that figure?
We were looking, when we spoke to Moody's, we indicated to Moody's that we would try to stabilize the carryover at about $12,500,000. When we were dialoguing with them, and maybe Commissioner Kay will recall, I indicated to them I thought our carryover would be about $13.5 million.
Correct.
I was pretty surprised when it came in as the original numbers that were reported, which was about $12 million, 8 to 12 million. My understanding now is that our carryover should be somewhere around $14.5 million, which is much more reflective of the numbers that we thought of late in the spring, early summer for the carryover, which is very pleasing. I think there's a number of reasons why we had a little additional cash, and Ms. Hobart can probably explain that to us.
Well, but before Ms. Hobart starts talking, did Fitch have a carryover figure that they wanted us to?
They would all like to
maintain?
see us at about 12.5 million to
That's what they
13
asked for,
million.
Commissioner, about
Okay.
12.5 for carryover just for working capital and operations.
Thank you. That was what I wanted to establish.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I can say, first of all, that the books are not yet closed for 2006 downstairs, hopefully by the end of the week. It did appear that sales tax came in quite a bit higher than what was projected for the year, as Dan came in, excuse me, with about 150,000 extra.
Dan being our county
Dan,
treasurer.
sorry, the treasurer. It was about 130 or 150,000 more in his interest. And there was a lot of unanticipated revenue that came in pretty heavy at the end of the year.
My understanding is we banked an addition, they raised the certificate an additional $1 million on the tax receipts?
They have not entered the taxes yet. I don't have that.
Is it anticipated that they
I
would-
believe, I can't give you a figure on that, but I do believe it's going to be higher than what they originally estimated in May of last year.
Let me ask the question again. We're calculating the carryover on something, right?
The carryover is what your actual cash is at the end of the year, less your encumbrances.
My
Your purchase
understanding was
orders.
that they raised the sales tax receipts by $1 million in December.
I don't believe it was $1 million, it was about 600,000 or 700,000, which is what we discussed at the end of the year.
And I thought I was told it was closer to $1 million.
No, they increased at the beginning of December, and then they came back and increased it again for a total of about 600,000 or 700,000 at the end of the
So
year.
that's 700,000, and then 150,000 from Dan would be 850,000.
Correct.
And what happened to our encumbrances?
The
It was some-
encumbrances dropped quite a bit, which we did not expect.
What does that mean to us?
That means that a lot of departments, obviously, were trying to get all their bills paid on purchase orders, which drops the encumbrance amount at the end of the year.
Has this occurred before?
It just depends on how the people, submit their bills to be paid, and sometimes it does happen, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, never by that amount, I've never seen it drop that much.
Okay.
Do you have a total of the encumbrances that?
They're not done with the books
Okay.
yet, so I'm not, hopefully by tomorrow or Wednesday, they should be closed.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mhm.
What was our anticipated carryover in the appropriation process?
It was 11.8.
11.8.
We end up at about 14.5, it looks like.
Yes.
Once again, to more fully answer your question, Commissioner, our revenue projections still lag our expenses by several millions of dollars. And that gap is already going to have the board spending about $4 million to $4.5 million in deficit spending next year. The only difference is my big concern was how much carryover we're going to have when we go visit our bond rating agencies later this year. It was going to be dangerously low to a point where we were going to jeopardize our rating. Our rating is going to be difficult to maintain this year, regardless of the carryover, because they're going to look at our revenue and expenditure numbers, and they're going to want to know what we're doing to align those numbers more fully and completely, and what our plan is to put those two numbers very close together, preferably with the revenue slightly exceeding the expense number. The plan that we've mapped out doesn't completely accomplish that. It starts to accomplish that, but it does not completely accomplish that goal. And as I've indicated to the board before, we need to work on that, and we need to seriously work on it because we don't have a lot of time. We can sustain the county where we're at for a while, but those numbers are not going to get any better. And remembering our spending numbers did not include any inflationary factors for the coming year. We flatlined the cost structure, and we said we have to absorb it within the current allocation, but there's going to be some areas where we're going to have the balloon effect. We're poking it, but it's going to expand someplace else, and we're going to have those costs. I don't know any other better way of answering your question other than say I wouldn't recommend that because we found some additional cash, that we allocate that cash out without a plan on how we're going to close the revenue to expense gap. I think we need to do those concurrently so that we have a long-term plan. That was a lot when you asked a little. I apologize.
No, you don't, because you keep trying to teach us.
Well, I don't know about teaching.
Oh, yes, you do.
You're the wise elder commissioner.
Yeah,
so-
right. You had to add the elder in there.
We still have to make up the loss of revenue is our concerns down
But
the
we
road.
passed our appropriation budget based on those factors, and now we have a couple $1 million more to divvy up.
Commissioner, I
Not
could actually,
necessarily, Commissioner. What we've done, though, is shorten our gap of less revenue for
I
this year.
understand that.
I can honestly tell you, look right down the bench to you, that I would have recommended the same appropriation no matter what the cash carryover was. It's pleasing to have more cash to give us some breathing room, but we still needed to start the process of increasing revenue and decreasing expenses. We have to do it sometime. My general feeling is that now that the day is here, now that we've lost the local government money, we need to deal with that problem as quickly as possible before we get double banged because we're out of cash and trying to deal with the problem. So I want to be very, very candid with you and tell you that I would not have recommended any additional numbers. You may have agreed to different numbers yourself, but I would not have recommended anything different to you in light of different revenue projection, different carryover projections. Now, if there was different revenue projections, and as you remember, the revenue projections that I gave you exceed the certificate by $2.5 million. So we've already taken a leap of faith that we're going to bring in $2.5 million more in revenue than what our certificate says, and on top of that, we've deficit spent, if the budget stands, almost $4.5 million. If that revenue comes in weak and we're wrong, we have a $7 million gap. Sorry.
You made it last year. I don't know if you'll make it this year.
I know, but that's because you kept telling me it was on my head last year, so.
Still is.
I think I'm still very comfortable in where my revenue projection numbers are going to be. And we'll watch this carryover number a little bit more closely. The information we gave to Moody's was a little bit closer to being more correct than what we were reported to, what was reported to us at the end of the year. So we'll pay a little bit more attention to that.
Well,
Now
I
that
think-
we have a new administration in the state, maybe they'll start giving us some of our money back.
Don't hold your
They have a
breath.
big surplus.
Well, the fat tax. The cat tax is turned into the fat tax, and they're putting their rainy day fund back together with it. Hopefully, with the change in administration, we'll see a gravitation towards the local level with some of those dollars. Something I need to remind the board of on the local government money is that was only a 2-year initiative. That expires this year. So we're not guaranteed that the state's going to continue to give us local government assistance money. And they have to do that now in their biennium budget process. So for those that are out there that have forgotten, past June 30th, we have no guarantee of local government assistance funds once again. And I don't hear the cry out there for any initiative underway to make sure that that stays on people's agenda. Now, while there's been some changes in the administration, there's also areas that, the administrations haven't changed, and we're still going to need to make sure that we get out there with CCAO and maybe even with local government here in Lorain County and make our voice heard. While we took a $3.5 million cut in the local government, you can see how difficult this is coming to deal with. We're still receiving over $6 million. My God, if we were to lose that $6 million, we'd have to start turning the light bulbs out and dimming down everything. So we're not out of the woods yet, and I'm hopeful that the state will understand the need. And a couple of things that I've read indicate that there may be an inflationary factor put on to some of that local government for the first time in almost a decade, so that hopefully we'll start seeing the dollars become more in line with inflationary factors, which hasn't occurred, which has actually reduced the power of those dollars in the partnership over the last 10 years.
Lisa, were we able to see through the cat tax what we received in 2006? I know the first quarter numbers were what, just $31,000, making up personal property tax end?
I think it's going to be a little bit lower yet.
Lower yet?
Yeah.
Okay. They're keeping all the money in Columbus.
Maybe we'll have to go to Columbus again.
I plan on it.
Okay, end of my reports.
I guess I'll
It's
go
up to
next,
you.
or would you like to go, Commissioner?
However you choose.
Well, go ahead, Commissioner.
I just want to let you know that even though the Board of Commissioners is not meeting this Thursday, January the 11th, our hearing room is going to be used by the Western Reserve Resource and Conservation Development District for their, I think it's a monthly meeting. They should change their name to make it a little shorter. Vince Urban represents the county on that Council, and they provide technical assistance to local communities through designated USDA areas led by our C&D councils, of which there are all across the state. And I don't know how many counties. I think there's about 8 counties that make up this Western Reserve RC&D. The purpose of the program is to accelerate the conservation, development, and use of natural resources while improving the general level of economic activity and standard of living in communities across the nation. Our C&D councils coordinate conservation and rural development assistance available from USDA, other federal, state, and local government and non-governmental resources. The meeting starts at 9, and it's a public meeting. If anybody's interested, feel free to stop by. That's my report.
That's it? Wow.
Surprised.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies, for electing me president. I'm thrilled with that. I'll be looking for your guidance with solid waste and such, commissioners. Yeah, just nice to be back. Kick off New Year's, Jim was discussing, we are short on revenue, so we're going to have to look at those issues amongst other ones. But go Buckeyes. I was going to wear an Ohio State shirt today, but I didn't think it would go over too well.
I was thinking about it,
Were you?
too. We
Okay.
should have called each other.
And then congratulations to our new governor, who was sworn in last night at 12:01 a.m. Good luck to Mr. Strickland, and congratulations to our local representatives, Mr. Kazura, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Lundy, Ms. Morano, and our adopted one, Ms. Cafaro, on being sworn in to represent us. Concludes my comments.
You're going down to Ms. Cafaro's?
Either Friday. No, I didn't go to Ms. Cafaro's last week. I couldn't get out of there.
Oh, you didn't make it
make
down?
it down there, so.
I,
I'll do this Friday and Saturday and Sunday.
I didn't sign in for the governors. I'm not going to go. No, you think
I'll
you're,
represent us.
I think you're on your own.
Be fine. So, be down for the inaugural ball this weekend.
The next Board of Commissioners meeting will be next Thursday, January 18th at 9:30. And then just to put out there, the travel reimbursement for this year will be at 48.5 cents.
Do we change that, or is that, we do it just once for the year? We're not following?
We did it last year as we would go by the IRS rules, so that's why I just put it out there, because we're not going to do it every year. We just did it.
It goes by whatever, though.
Whatever it is.
We
by
adopted at the beginning of the
IRS,
year,
this is
so
what it
it
is.
kind of washes. Okay, I couldn't remember how we
We're
did
very
that.
efficient.
I
And
know
there
it took
are,
us 15
according
years to
to,
get
also to IRS, there's a lot of new exemptions going on. Me and Yvonne have been working on it, try to put something together, because it deals with, maintenance departments, everybody as a whole, with IRS exemptions and what's tax exempt, what's not tax exempt now, and so on and so forth.
Oh, you're
So,
talking about for like traveling and lodging? and
traveling,
things?
uniforms, everything this year, so.
The,
Do you want a uniform, Lori?
Sure.
I have just for your edification, I have all the IRS tax codes on benefits in my office, every one of them. Okay, and I receive updates to all that. So if there's any question on employer-provided benefits that may place somebody in a taxable area, we need to, you can just come and talk to me. That's a hangover from my HR days. So I do have that information available for you.
Board correspondence.
Move it be waived.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Public comment?
Nobody.
So we move into executive session for, trying to think where I got to go to next. Into executive session for our administrator.
Second?
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Good morning, Commissioners. If you're ready, we're ready to make our
We're ready.
presentation.
We're ready.
As you know, the Lorain County Growth Partnership has been up and running for a few months now. I want to recap a little bit about what's been going on with the Growth Partnership and move into a couple initiatives that have been collaboratively accomplished through the partnership. You're going to see and hear from several of our partners in the Lorain County Growth Partnership that came together on these initiatives. But let me recap a few things on the Lorain County Growth Partnership before we move in. The partnership was established by the Lorain County Board of Commissioners in 2006 to focus on assisting business startups and expansion of current businesses. They bring together resource of government, community, education, and business organizations, develop county-wide goals and strategies, and organizes task-specific teams to provide services and support for Lorain County Growth Partnership initiatives. Some of the accomplishments to date is the county's primary economic development organizations have been physically located to the 5th floor of the Lorain County Administration Building, which includes the Lorain County Chamber of Commerce, Lorain County Community Development, Lorain County Community College Training Facility, which is underway. We have discussed that with the board over the last few weeks. There's a lot of progress being made. The college staff has been out here. We've been working on 4 plates, and we're currently discussing an MOU so that we have a clear understanding of responsibilities and roles. I'm encouraged that the project is moving forward, and I'm hoping that sometime in the first quarter of next year, we will start doing the build-out and see some significant progress with our partnership with the college on that. Lorain County Solid Waste was one of the first tenants up on the 5th floor. Team Lorain County is up and staffed and running, and we're looking forward to collaborating with them, and we're already working on some projects with them, and you had a very successful event last week. The ancillary offices are being staffed by some of our partners, such as Glide, Team NEO, PSI. As we develop more and more ability to work on projects together, we'll see more staffing in those offices, and we're looking forward to additional resources being developed and provided on the 5th floor. Currently, we staff up on Tuesday mornings with a full complement of resources. We're calling those our team days on Tuesday mornings. That is the time when a lot of networking is accomplished, and or if projects are being worked on together, everybody has the ability to be present at one location. So it's working fairly well. We've had a little bit of fits and start with our starts, but I'm comfortable that we're progressing in the right direction with that. Some additional comments is ongoing communication with partners in business, local government, and service organizations across Lorain County. Development of strategies to meet real project objectives. Development of project teams to move forward with real initiatives. And development of the Lorain County Growth Partnership website to provide information to the public about the organization. Provide a secure, password-protected access to online work groups for real team members to share information and current projects and opportunity. One of the things you're going to hear this morning, and I'm getting ready to pass this presentation because I want to move rapidly through it, we have a lot to present, is about real teams. And Marsha's going to present that to you. You notice the word real is being used a lot in this presentation. And we were looking for something to grab and hold of and demonstrate what's going on in Lorain County. And while we played with the letters several times, you'll see why we ended up with the real team and real emphasis. And with that, I believe it's time for me to pass the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here representing Dr. Church, who is in Columbus today meeting with Lieutenant Governor-elect Lee Fisher to further advance the higher education agenda, and also in Mr. Fisher's role with the Department of Development and Economic Development to start to lay some groundwork for some of the initiatives that we're working on. So he apologizes for not being here. We have been just absolutely delighted to be part of the planning process and the strategy development that has come together as a result of the Lorain County Growth Partnership. You know, I'm reflecting on, I think it was about a year ago, the unveiling of the concept of the growth partnership that you all had and the vision of what could be accomplished. And I think what you're going to hear throughout this presentation are some of the really exciting forward-moving initiatives that really do speak to the vision that you created in terms of how, when bringing all of the partners together, not only under one roof, as you have done on the 5th floor, but also through the strategy development and also through technology, and we're going to demonstrate some of that for you today. As Jim said, the acronym REAL was really the evolution of looking at what were the 4 primary areas that we were going to be focused on. And those are retention, expansion, attraction, and the 4th one, the L, standing for leadership. Because what really has evolved has been through your leadership and then the leadership of all of the partners. It really is, I think, has made such a strong statement, not only for Lorain County, but in some of the work that we have been doing regionally. There is a lot of buzz and talk about all of the right things that are happening in Lorain County as a part of this. The REAL teams really are comprised of individuals who are brought together for specific purposes that would reflect on one of those 4 areas. Some of the primary focuses, it's communication driven, and that probably, if we were to underscore one of the aspects, the open communication to ensure that everyone is on the same page and that we're collaborating and coordinating our efforts is absolutely critical. We are using technology so that it's web-based, so that we have the ability for everyone to view that is part of a team the same type of information, have ongoing postings, and to not have to worry about whether you're present at a meeting or not, but to really deliver anytime, anywhere communications within a team structure. And it's operating at the speed of the internet. It's all in real time. We currently have 6 teams that are operating with different members and leaders, and I think later in the presentation you'll hear from some of those. How do the teams work and how does REAL work? It's the point of entry into the partnership. As we look at a project, it would be assessed in terms of who needs to be part of that. And in terms of the teams, or the membership of the teams, you have certainly the Lorain County Administrator, Jim Cordes, the County Economic Development Department with Ron Twining and his staff members, the Lorain County JVS, the Employment Network, the Workforce Investment Board, and the Community College as some of the members. And then others are brought in dependent upon what is the goal and what are we trying to achieve. Sub-teams can be assigned if it's specific to a particular employer that different resources need to be brought together. And again, we have team leaders that are designated for each of the 6 teams currently that have ongoing communications out to the members to ensure that everyone is on the same page and that we look for really the leveraging of the resources that everyone can bring to the process so that we are refining it, we're being efficient, and we're not duplicating what others are doing. In terms of the website that has been created, and you'll see a demonstration of this, each of the project pages are archived, and then there's the opportunity for it to be threaded. In other words, you can see from one communication to the next what the postings are for each of the projects. What do we have on the web? This is what we would describe as an intranet, which goes through the internet so that it can go through to the public, but the intranet is password protected so that only the team members are able to access the pages and to look at the information, because in many cases it may be something that is either confidential or proprietary until it becomes, until the project has been finalized. Team members will each have their own password. We've worked with the college's web team to create that and put that together for everyone. Everyone gets their password, and then it really becomes a push and pull type of an environment. In other words, it's up to the individual team members. They can go out access the information, see what's there, but also as information is being updated, we have the opportunity to immediately send notifications or emails to members of a team to say, you know, new information has been posted to the site or whatever. So it should be highly interactive, and that it would have logs of all of the contacts that are made as a part of it. And we are all committed to ensuring that we post the information as we're working on it and when it's available. And with that, I would like to, oh, I'm sorry. Can we go to the website now, Ernie?
Commissioners, well, we're going to demonstrate a page for you with the password protection. As Marcia indicated to you, one of the problems that we encountered early on while we were forming the Lorain County Growth Partnership was communication. Communication was very, very poor between organizations. We all wanted to work together, but we were struggling to communicate. We started doing group emails and trying to keep the communications working that way, but as you well know, everybody gets literally hundreds of emails a week, and archiving that material becomes difficult. One of the things I discussed this morning, and we haven't told the person that's going to be designing further enhancements to the site, is that we're going to put an automatic on those web pages, so when somebody goes in and posts an event that has occurred with one of the companies that we're working on, there's going to be an automatic message sent out to the people alerting them that there's new information available on that company. This way we don't have to worry about them plugging in and checking periodically to see if there's any new information and or getting dropped out of the email list. So they will get an alert that something has occurred, and would they visit that page and update themselves on what's going on with the progress of that company. It seems like really simple concepts here, but I can tell you that right now nobody else is doing it this way. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're simply taking the resources that are out there and we're collecting them into a comprehensive model that will provide good communication across this county and will further enhance getting things done through the Lorain County Growth Partnership. I think we have a page up now. Oh, I have the honor of having my name as the first login. Isn't something bad, is it?
Put something crude in.
Okay, I see Mr. Titilio is preparing for his portion of the...
Now we all know Jim's password.
It's not showing.
Now you can see that we're set up with threads and posts, similar to a lot of the pages you'll see out there. A lot of blog pages use these days. Again, it's not cutting edge technology, but for us it's brand new, and using this technology in a constructive manner that furthers our goals with the Lorain County Growth Partnership is new and exciting for us. I see Shelton is moving around here, and he's going to click through a few things.
Well, the way these individual team sites are set up is there's one for each of the teams. As you can see, when you hover over real projects, the entire site's available to the general public just by going to lcgp.net. However, if you're on one of the real teams, this real projects tab doesn't come up. You'll only see it right now. We only let Jim get into the incumbent worker training team, even though the other teams are already in there. Short description on what the project is. Also discussion boards. So if I want to create a discussion, I can click on here, begin a discussion thread. Running a little slow in here. So if I wanted to start a new thread, I just click on there. It's just like with any other kind of discussion board. Put in the subject, put in your message. On Jim's personal information, he can go in and change that if anytime anyone posts a message on this discussion board, he can get an email, let them know that a discussion, that a new thread has been added or new information has been added. There's also a training team library. You can see Marcia put in a lot of the information on the particular incumbent worker program. The process flow, any kind of training resources documents. These documents can be Word documents, they can be PowerPoints, they can be Excel spreadsheets. Going back to the discussion boards, those two can also not only post discussion information, you can post documents if you want to have a, if you want to refer to a particular document, those can be in here. People who are on these teams have permissions not only to go in, I don't know, just for example, click on one of the documents. Anyone who's on any of these teams do have permission to go in and access these documents. They can replace the old ones with the new ones. They can add new documents. And there is a record of who on the team has gone in and changed documents, so you can see who did it, who the last document owner was, and what that record is.
Great, thank you, Shelton. Shelton wasn't actually supposed to present this morning, so I'm grateful that he's sitting here being able to do that. Commissioners, before we move on, and I want to move on because I know Mr. Randall is already running late and he has a piece to present. I'm sorry, Bill, we went a little later than I thought.
But you will be, huh?
Do you have any questions, any comments on what you see so far?
Very nice job, team.
Okay, with that, we will move to Mr. DiTilio, and he will begin the second part of our presentation, which is incumbent worker training.
Thank you, Mr. Cordes. Good morning, Commissioners. It's great to be here this morning. A lot of us have been working a lot of hours trying to make sure that we can build a system that is going to effectively move us to the next level of process, especially when it comes to supporting the business community and keeping our economy healthy. You're seeing two different initiatives this morning that are coming out of the Growth Partnership. The Real Teams, I think, is really an exciting mechanism that allows us to do the kind of things that we want to do in the future. And when I talk to you now about the incumbent worker training piece, you'll see that really this incumbent worker training piece was really the first real team for us. It was a work in progress for us as we were trying to design and build real teams. And a lot of the work that's come out of this is really helped us to focus on how the real teams are going to work and what kind of impact they're going to have. One of the important issues I think that we began to understand, and everybody needs to understand, is that we're all working at this from a specific area, and that is to build a healthy local economy for Lorain County. And to do that, there are a number of items that really need to be addressed, but two of them certainly are the fact that our companies need to be globally competitive so that the economy is healthy and they continue to create jobs. And also, our workforce needs to be world-class. And what I mean by that is they need to be trained and upskilled so that the companies that they're working for can compete globally and be able to have an effective process. Over the last 10 to 12 years, we have built a number of collaboratives around workforce and workforce issues because workforce has always been a critical part of how the local economy grows. Back in the mid-90s, we put together a collaboration called the Workforce Institute. That was a collaboration between the college, the JVS, and the Chamber of Commerce that took a look at issues related to the workforce, the existing workforce, and then also took a look at future issues with the workforce and what kind of projects and processes we needed to have in place so that we could keep the future workforce in the right position. The second initiative that we worked on that had to deal with workforce issues was the employment network. This is a collaboration of a number of partners, all of which I think there's about 12, I believe, altogether, that really worked on trying to understand how we could build a system that could work with employers and meet their needs from a hiring standpoint and a training standpoint, and also to work with the employees or the future employees in job opportunities, in job matching, in processes. That process has been in place since the late 90s and early 2000. And then the training network kind of was a piece that was put together simultaneously with the employment network. There really was a collaboration between the college and the JVS, and they got together and they worked really diligently to try to put the processes together that made training a more effective tool for businesses in Lorain County. And this latest effort is with regards to incumbent workers. Incumbent workers are workers who are employed at this present time. We do have and have had money over the past to train dislocated workers, but the real critical issue for a number of us has been how do we train the existing workforce so that they can upskill, so that they can make their companies be more competitive. This morning, we're going to get a chance to take a look at how we're proactively, trying to assist local companies in identifying the needs at the local level, at their incumbent worker level. This training is certainly going to be designed to take a look at helping make companies more competitive. Excuse me. This collaboration started like most of our collaborations with individual organizations, all looking at common issues. But I think because the partnership was in place and that we were looking at designing real teams, that we had a really good opportunity to put in place a group of individuals who really wanted to be involved in this incumbent worker piece that was a critical component for our economy. I really think that with the efforts of what we've been able to do to lobby to get some dollars allocated for incumbent workers, that we're now getting ready to launch a program that I think that will have a different kind of impact on existing companies, to give them a better attitude and a better process and a better platform so that they can provide those kind of training needs and have them coordinated through through the partnership. At this point in time, I'd like to pass this presentation on to Vivian Alexander to talk a little bit about the incumbent worker training services part of the process.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Vivian.
First, before I get started, I would like to say that this has been a great opportunity for me to sit around the table with some talented individuals that have a wealth of knowledge, and I think the county should be thankful to have such great assets that really know what works and what doesn't work. And I find myself to be one that is learning quite a bit from these individuals. So please bear with me as I go through this slide presentation for you. Okay. The guidelines and process. This incumbent worker training is funded by the Workforce Investment Act. In March, the Department of Labor passed a waiver to allow us to take adult and dislocated workers to fund the training. And I think that this is going to be a great opportunity. And during this process, we decided to target companies that had employees either from 1 to 300 employees. And the company proposals will identify how their training will facilitate the company's growth strategy. So the process actually started and came down around the spring of this year. And next you have the business requirements. We came up with some guidelines that will allow that the companies must be a for-profit business and must have been in the operation of Lorain County for at least a minimum of 1 year. And they may not have no more than 300 employees. We chose not to exceed that number. They must demonstrate a financial viability and must be current on all state taxes. And these were just guidelines that we were trying to put in place that would give us a way to kind of gauge and judge how we were going to view the companies. And they must contribute 50% of the cost in order to receive incumbent worker dollars. And that can be done either way, in cash or in kind. That's something that we weren't expecting, but it's something that we do have to follow suit on. And then the next one, and priority is going to be given to businesses with, just please bear with me. I'm not going to read everything. I just kind of tried to break it down a little bit for you. Some of it is self-explanatory, but we want to help companies accelerate growth. I mean, that's what it's really designed for. It wouldn't benefit if we weren't trying to get outcomes like that. We want to encourage bringing new money into Lorain County. And in review of national and statewide economic development, for the last bullet on here that you'll see regarding the businesses that meet the definitions of emerging technology, in review of national and statewide economic development initiatives, most are focused around these clusters. Next, please. And regarding the training services we are looking at, when we're talking about can be provided through public or private educational institutions, we're looking at such places as Lorain County Community College, the JVS, EHOBE, or some private vendors. So there's just a host that I can name. Those are just a few that I did name. And for private post-secondary institutions, we just, going through the review process, we just want to make sure that what they put before us, that they're going to spend the money like they've stated that they want to do it. So that's going to be part of the process. Next, please. And for the awards, we may find all the applications will be evaluated to leverage other state funding. There's probably other state funding that's available. We may find some companies that, after going through a review process, the incumbent worker training may not be what works for their company. So there may be another training process that we'll put in place that will actually work for the company. So there are some federal and state dollars out there that may help to offset that if the incumbent worker training is not what their company does need. And businesses approved for funding enter into a contract. That's just kind of standard language, for the final process of how the contract's going to be awarded. And I believe that's all I have to present, and I do thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamra Barsick, the Director of Employment Network.
Good morning. As Vivian talked about in her presentation, there were some guidelines and activities that we had to come up with, one consistent with the legislation, one consistent with state regulations, and also consistent with some of the decisions that we wanted to do locally. But I think it's really critical when you look at this next set that, which is the process, that we've tried to make it as painless as possible for the employers in terms of them accessing the resources that are out there. So we start this at the bottom of the slide that's there, called employer outreach. And as we discussed earlier, in order to pilot this, what we're going to do is really have some conversations about companies that we can target that have that growth potential, companies who would truly benefit from training that would kind of tip them over to that higher growth level. And so there will be a group of people who we call the leadership team who will actually go out and meet with those employers and talk to them about this new process or this new program. That leadership really will be representatives of the growth partnership, as well as representatives from the private sector who can get access to some of the employers that are out there relatively quickly. One of the things we really, the way we're looking at this is that we're trying to pilot this activity between January 1st and the end of June to help refine the process, to make sure that the kinds of things we're asking of businesses are realistic and that we have things in place. So there will be some target employers for that pilot process, although I believe it's the commitment of the team that, any business out there who has been able to find out about this, who have these needs, can also be talked to once we get through kind of some of those growing pains that we have with any new process. Once the outreach has occurred, a consulting team will actually be sent out if a business is interested in pursuing the conversation. And we talked a lot about this in the design to say that a lot of times businesses don't have the resources to stop work and really think strategically about their longer-term plans. And so, again, in order to try to facilitate companies making good decisions about the kinds of training that are out there or the resources that are available to them, we will actually send out a team of folks who are really experts in these areas, people who understand human resource processes, people who understand training and the role that it plays in a company, people who can be very realistic with businesses about the commitment it's going to take in order to be successful to integrate the training into their organizations. And so that consulting team will go out then and follow up with an employer to really do that need assessment. as somebody who's done a lot of work with the private sector, you know, a lot of times what we see is that the need is articulated one way. I need to train my workers, but the reality is that there's a lot of other things around that also we can access in terms of resources. So we may go in and do a training program, and we had this experience actually with one of the real companies that we've been working with over the last couple of months. The employer really identified the need for some training, but the more we talked, we also understood that they had no infrastructure for hiring. They didn't have proper steps. They didn't have job descriptions that really were accurately reflecting the need that the company had. And so, you know, not stopping and saying, oh, we're going to just do this training, we said, here are all the resources that are available in the county. Here's how you can take advantage of the expertise that exists in terms of assessment that the JVS had. Here's how you can take advantage of the resources that the college can have in terms of the specific training program. And here's how the Employment Network can help you recruit and screen candidates that you can ultimately hire. So we wanted to be really clear that that consulting team will actually sit down, do some need identification, and then draft a plan that takes advantage of all of the resources that are out here in terms of workforce development, and also make that connection to economic development. What we might also find is that the company could be in a situation where getting access to funds to help expand their building or relocate in that community would be a good thing. Once that plan is drafted, the team will then go back and sit with the employer and appropriate labor representatives, if that's the case. I think that when you look at models of this activity across the country, what you see is that if organized labor is in place in the facility, it's critical that there's a partnership and agreement upon how the training will be integrated into the workplace. If not, it's also important that the employees understand that the activities that are being done are really being done in the best interest of the company's growth, but also long-term employment for the people that are working there. So it's the intention of this design that we work very closely with management and employees to make sure that they're clear about the kinds of activities that will go on. And then from there, we'll do that last final screen, that collection of documentation. Again, with anything, as some of the slides that Vivian showed you, there are requirements in terms of information we have to collect. We have to verify that the business is viable, that it's current on its taxes and all those kinds of things. And so we'll have to do some of that as painlessly as possible, trying to collect as much of the information as we can without, being invasive in terms of, the company's private business. But really, we're required to do that kind of activity. And then finally, that plan will be presented back to that leadership team, that original group of people, to have them kind of do the due diligence on it. Is this a legitimate plan? Is it really part of something that will help advance the county's agenda? Have all the T's and I's been crossed so that when it moves from back then to the Workforce Investment Board and ultimately to you, that you could be confident that the questions have been asked? Not to say you can't ask questions, but to say that folks have really done due diligence to say this is a good investment of these very scarce resources on behalf of the company, and ultimately should lead to some really positive and exciting things for the county. So if you look at the process, I think the first thing that Mr. Cordes said, and I think Mr. DiTilio said the same thing in the design, is like, how long is this going to take? And it's not designed to take a long time. It's designed to make sure that the company has good dialogue with people who can help diagnose the situations, that we, as the team of people who are putting together those original plans, really listen to the company and respond to what they're saying, and then give them a chance to review the plan and say, yes, this will help meet our needs. These are the pieces that we're interested. Here are the things that we want changed in that plan. And then the process then would go to the Workforce Investment Board as well as the commissioners, which is how that relationship needs to work. The Workforce Investment Board, because they're on your behalf overseeing that money on a day-to-day basis, ultimately then coming it back to you. So while it looks like lots of steps, I think it really is a very fluid kind of activity. We could be working with more than one company at a time. I think it's a way for us to kind of lay out what companies can expect when they say, yes, we might be interested in this, or kind of read about it or hear about it and say, this is something we want to take advantage of. As with anything, the most important thing that a lot of people will talk about is what are the outcomes? What are the things that you want to see happen when it comes to this? And so we really have, spent some time with developing some of those tangible measures that we have to, as well as some of those other kinds of measures that will ultimately, contribute to the overall success of this program. And so I'm going to turn the program over to Bill Randall, the superintendent at the JVS.
Good morning and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you, Bill. Mr. Cordez and I are appropriately attired, and he's got my tie on. Well, they left the educator to talk about expectations and outcomes. I guess those are big words and hot topics in the education field today. Actually, to have a process and know whether you're effective, you have to start with a set of expectations and outcomes, to measure your success. And so we really have four groups that will be looking at us. We'll be looking at ourselves in relation to these various groups, as I would call them, to see if we're meeting expectations, whether we're meeting our outcomes. And obviously, one is the state, because there's state money involved because of the WIA, and the state always has. We always have to meet hold our feet to the fire for some performance measures in about anything we do. And some of those measures are the retention of workers that are trained to stay in the workforce and with the company, hopefully, that they're trained with. Skills, that's fairly measurable. Obviously, that's a measurable objective. Skills upgrade, a little harder to measure, but certainly through the credentials that are issued by the institutions that would do the training, we would have a measure there. Wage increase, hopefully that the people that are trained and have a higher degree of skills, a higher level of skills, and more skills would receive additional pay. And of course, we have to track the failures too, the non-positives. Unfortunately, nobody's perfect and no program is perfect, so we'll have to hopefully have the successes outweigh by manyfold the non-positive outcomes that we might have. The other, the second group would be the employer-employee outcomes. And I think it's important to note, and I think you've seen this thread through the whole process, and Jan alluded to it, and I'll speak a little more to it about it, that this has to be customer-driven. This has to be what the company needs. And Jan spoke very well to that. We can't package product and go out and take it and peddle it. It has to be their product. I did this for about 21 years in another JVS district as the adult ed director, and I've had many conversations with people. You have to do what they need, and you have to do a very strong analysis, because probably all they can tell you about their training needs is what the symptoms are. And the symptoms may not be reflective of the real problems they have. So this has to be a customer-driven process. And it has to be both the employers and the employees of the company generally who help drive the process. So, especially where there's organized labor involved. The organization has to be on board with the training, or it will not work. So it is I would say, a user-defined process. We've got computer people here, user-defined. And the identified needs have to come from that group. The third group that has expectations of what we're going to be doing is the workforce and economic development system. We have to try to have a strategic alignment of the economic and workforce development resources. We have to put everybody in the picture that needs to be in the picture for a particular process. And obviously, we spoke to that. We have to be proactive. The fourth group is the community. And I think on the slides you'll see under community, obviously a more competitive workforce is a huge outcome there. And that plays into the retention, the expansion, all the things that the real team needs to do. So, if you can go out and brag what a great workforce we have, and we can prove it by the high level of training they have, and you see it in their performance, and we can do more, that certainly is good for the community. But in my experiences, I see even a few additional things that I editorialized here. If you'll excuse me, I spent a long time working in this area. I think one of the things that you will see in the community is more worker loyalty. if you invest in me, I'm going to have more respect for you and be more dedicated and more likely to stay with a company. That's part of that hierarchy of needs. People want to feel loved, and I guess if you train me and make me better, it shows a little of that love. I think it also sets a tone in our community that you know how things, the hallway conversations, well, we're doing this and we're doing that. I hear it in my profession quite often. You hear it. Ted, you were just at a big meeting. You probably did as much by having somebody by the buttonhole in the hallway as you did in the big meetings. That I think this success of companies doing this will breed success. That other companies will want to upgrade their workforce. Potential employees will see that companies invest in their workers, and we'll be able to attract the best employees to our companies. And potential employers will look at a community that does this for their employers and works hard to accomplish these things to upgrade the workforce, and will be more interested in Lorain County if these things happen. We have two wonderful institutions that can do this work, so it's important to recognize that. And I think another thing that it does is it builds worker self-esteem. I'm sure that Marcia sees this at the college. We see it at the JVS, that sometimes some people have had a hard time in school. And if in a different setting, in a different set of circumstances, they can succeed with education and training, that they'll want more. And they'll be able to climb that career ladder through a company and really elevate themselves and the company productivity-wise, their ability to take on additional tasks or whatever it may be. That self-esteem is a big piece. People believe they can't do it, they won't. People believe they can, will. So thank you for the opportunity this morning. I think this is a great effort that we have, and I'm going to turn it over to the man with my tie on, Mr. Cortez. We get together and decide which day we're going to wear which Christmas tie, so here he is.
We almost wore the same one the night of the events. Good thing I saw you that morning at a different meeting. People would have been talking. Commissioners, we're going to pull up a piece here that we're going to be using to demonstrate the program. I'm going to provide you a couple copies here. I think I gave you a book with these in there. One of the things we wanted to demonstrate at this point was that all this information is web-based. Everything that we do right now, we're trying to make it web-based so it's easy for the companies to work on it. This is the piece that we put together with the current training that's available so that we could deliver something quickly into the workplace. I will indicate to you that this is an evolving process, that it will become more complicated as we find out what the needs of the companies are going to be more fully. But these are services that are easily deliverable right now through our current partnerships with JVS and Lorain Community College. The program definitely will be able to be used for other types of trainings, but we felt it essential that we get something going now and get the program moving now, especially since some of our dollars are critical that have to be spent before the end of June. So we needed to get a program on the street to do that, and we're still waiting on some additional dollars. I believe that we have an initial $166,000 to start with a 50% in-kind or direct dollar match. You can see we have $320,000, $325,000 towards the program. We're hoping for another 275, up to 500. I'm waddling Ms. Alexander as we speak here. So if we got another $500,000 and there's a 50% match, we have $1 million program. So there is a lot at stake here for this program, and success is going to be critical because we're being watched very closely, and we can set the tempo and the pace and be the role model for development of these type programs. And here is the piece up here, and I don't know if Marcia has anything to add on that.
And you have copies of it, but this is just, we wanted to put on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper something very succinct that would provide the employer with an overview of the types of opportunities. However, as Bill Randall indicated, it would be very customized to whatever that specific need is for that employer. But we wanted to have something to at least present to them, and that reflects the entire growth partnership and the support of the county and the partners, and what some of the opportunities for training and education are.
Ron?
Good morning, Commissioners. It's my pleasure to wrap up this session this morning, so we are nearing the end. It certainly has been my pleasure on your behalf to work with all of these people on these two initiatives that we're announcing today. And as we wrap up today's presentation, I'd like to state a few facts. They're on the screen right now. Ohio has certainly in the last 10, 15 years been known nationwide as a battleground state. It's actually been known that for quite some time longer, but it's really gotten legs in the last 10 or 15 years. Often, I think our residents understand that being a battleground state means we're wounded and scarred. Some would actually believe that we're mortally wounded. I don't think that's the case, and I want to take just a few seconds to point some of the points out that we have here. If you look at the metropolitan statistical areas that the federal government uses, we are now part of the Cleveland, Akron, Elyria, and Lorain CMSA. That is the 16th largest population center, employment center in the nation. Right ahead of us is St. Pete, St. Paul is behind us in Minnesota, and right directly ahead of us is Mesa, Phoenix in Arizona. So you can see population-wise, that's an important thing that we shouldn't lose sight of in our region of Northeast Ohio. Take that and realize that Ohio is the 7th most populated state in this nation, and that between the 1990 and 2000 population numbers, we heard how everything was deplorable and we were losing population and all of that. We still were the 9th largest state in the nation. So we were growing faster than everybody but 8. Lorain County, certainly as a county itself within this 7th most populated area, we have, as a county, we're the 9th largest population center of the state. We end up with the 25th geographic largest area in the state. Housing units, we are number 10 with 111,000 housing units. And we also end up number 11 with the density of housing units in the state of Ohio. So we're in a very populated state with a state that is larger than certainly most in the country, and we shouldn't lose sight of that as we see the decline. I think we have an openness here in Lorain County to talk about what's happening, what trends are, both good and bad, and that ends up getting lost in the shuffle. We do have a growing economy. There are some sectors clearly that have declined and will likely continue to decline more because of the world marketplace that we've worked in. The county as a whole, and certainly the Board of County Commissioners, have been very proactive in recent years, creating everything from this partnership, going back to Glide and the Workforce Investment Board, and even the college with the Entrepreneurial Center. All have been an effort to keep Lorain County focused on what is really important and allows companies to grow within this region and in the world market. Next, we want to talk about what makes Lorain County and what will continue to make Lorain County important, and why the real team and the incumbent worker portion is so critical. There are 3 things that make for a healthy economy, and I don't care where you're at in the world, those 3 things still exist. You either make it, you grow it, or you mine it. We make things very well here in Lorain County. We grow things extremely well. Agriculture in the county is a $94 million operation, so we should know that we make things very well and that we grow things very well. The 2 initiatives you heard today show a cooperation between the private sector, educational segments of the county, and government collaborating to make Lorain County a formidable force to be dealt with. Our true purpose of these programs and several others is to make businesses successful and profitable Government itself, again, we don't create jobs from my office. We provide incentives for the private sector to create the jobs, and that's an important thing that also sometimes get lost. One thing that we've done and will continue to do, we had a very, very successful December 6th showcase event where we selectively invited in companies to come to the the fifth floor to see what we were doing up there, to begin slowly to educating the public and the business community on the potential. Events like what we're holding today will get out to people so that they can better acquaint themselves with not just county government, but all of the partners, and that's the important part. One thing, and I know that this probably will generate moans, but one thing that we like to do is say that we have real results from real teams in rapid time for the real world. It's a little bit like the 800-pound beast. Which would you rather have, or which would you rather be confronted with? An 800-pound gorilla or 800 one-pound squirrels? At times we have the 800 one-pound squirrels that we're dealing with. The real team, we feel, is the next step with the partnership to better manage and bring all of the partners together to make a healthier county environment for our businesses and industry in Lorain County. And I applaud everybody in their cooperation and efforts, and I believe Mr. Cortez would like the final comments.
Thank you, Ron. Commissioners, let me point out that you've seen most of the people that worked on developing the incumbent worker training. I'd like to also thank Peggy Mitchner from JVS, Terry Good from the Workforce Institute, and Jim Shanahan from Lorain Community College. There was a lot of players that came together, spent a lot of time working on this project for the betterment of the community. All I can say is that the Lorain County Growth Partnership is working. We're coming together. We're starting to see some outcomes. We're going to deliver more outcomes from you in the first quarter of next year. The risk that you have taken, the investment that you have made is well placed. You are pioneering new challenges for us, and we're going to deliver results for you. It's going to take time. I always said that the Lorain County Growth Partnership would take a year or two to mature. We need to continue to nurture it. We need to continue to make the relationships, and we need to continue to move forward. But Lorain County is real. It is really happening, and we're going to produce real results. And I thank you for your commitment to this and your ongoing support and your continued desire to improve this community. And with that, I'll open it up to the board for any questions. I'm hoping you have some significant thinking on how we're doing to date. Thank you.
I'll go. Too many things to comment on. Sort of when Jan spoke about growing pains, I guess they're good growing pains. We're going from like a very talented junior college basketball player to LeBron James when it comes to economic development in Ohio. We spoke about this when we were down in Columbus Commissioners meeting. People had heard about the County Growth Partnership. And it's very near and dear to me. Finding qualified help with the incumbent worker training, it makes private sector companies more competitive. Always finding help is tough. When you have good help, you want to make it available to them, become even better help for you. You can pay them more, they can provide better for their families, and hopefully stay with you longer. You want the long-term employee, they're more valuable to you. It's nice to see where the private and the public sector are working towards the betterment of the county. The team is a great team. You guys really put a lot of work into this. I've been talking about incumbent worker training for 3 or 4 years, knowing that Ohio was holding our money, and you guys were able to bring it together. Thank you very much. It's finally coming back up north. All the money that we've sent down south to Columbus is finally coming back north to us for our constituents, and it's folks like you, Bill Randall, JVS, Jan Robarczyk, Ron Twining, Vivian Alexander, Jim Cortez, Marcia Ballinger, too many to mention, Roy Church, really working together on this, which has never been done before in Lorain County. So, I mean, this is probably the best thing since I've been in office that we've accomplished, and just keep working hard, and whatever you need, come see us. And I need my password so I can be a part of the real teams.
Can we trust you with the
Because I always have an
confidential?
opinion.
Can we trust you with the confidential information?
Without a doubt, sir.
If you can't trust him, who can you trust?
Well, I think that
This is the city of
he has
Lorain.
been.
This is county government.
I think that Commissioner Kalo has been taken to task a few times on confidential information. But,
Nah.
we'll definitely get the commissioner's passwords and access to the levels that they need.
Thank you.
Betty?
I have no comment. Thank you.
I think the biggest thing, I'm really excited about the growth partnership, and we have a lot of talented people in this room today that have been working on these types of issues for a long, long time, and I have all the respect for you, and I believe together we're going to do it, and we're going to bring more jobs, and we're going to retain more jobs, so I'm really excited about it. Communication is key, and I think Roy Church said it best. For a company coming to locate here in Lorain County, there's no wrong door for them to knock on. And all the entities are in the same place, so thank you.
Again, thank you, Commissioners. That concludes our presentation. One last thought. We were actually able to come together and put this program together in less than, I want to say, 2.5 months. Anybody from the team want to? I think it was about 2.5 months, and the growth partnership and the collaboration that we're developing allowed us to do that very quickly. In the past, we've been so busy putting a program together, we lost the timing on it and have lost economics before. So if nothing else, we're being forced to work together and get things done. Thanks very much for your time and patience this morning, and that concludes our presentation.
The Lorain County Commissioners would like to welcome you to come down to the Lorain County Dog Kennel.
We have lots of dogs available for adoption. We also encourage all dog owners to register your dog each year and get a dog license.
We also have a special dog license. It's a special heart medical care license tag for an additional $5. And the proceeds from that go to help us when we pick up a stray that's injured or needs extreme medical care.
In 1787, the Continental Congress organized the lands from the Ohio River to the Mississippi into the Northwest Territories. In 1803, the first of these territories to become a state was Ohio. Ohio was in turn divided into various land grants, including the Connecticut Western Reserve in the northeast corner of the state. The Western Reserve included the area that is today Lorain County. As Ohio gradually increased its counties to the present 88, the land we know as Lorain County went through several changes. Until 1810, the area was split between Geauga and Portage counties. When the area was being organized into Lorain County in 1822, it was created out of land from Huron, Cuyahoga, and Medina counties. At the time of its birth, Lorain County included Olmsted Township, now in Cuyahoga County, Spencer and Homer Townships, now in Medina County, and Troy and Sullivan Townships, now in Ashland County. This map illustrates the county as it appeared at the time of Ohio's centennial, and although some of the townships have been absorbed by incorporation, it also represents the shape of Lorain County today. Let's take a brief historical look at each of Lorain County's 21 townships. In 1807, the Calvin Hoadley and Herman Bronson families of Waterbury, Connecticut, began the settlement of Columbia. After a 3-month trek, the pioneers arrived in their new homeland in time to celebrate Christmas. The Bronsons, including their 7-month-old son, began that winter sheltered by their overturned bobsled wagon, converted into a frontier lean-to. The mouth of the Black River also saw the beginning of its first settlement in 1807, when Azariah Beebe established a trading post for Nathan Perry. This area, which 20 years earlier had seen a short-lived Moravian mission, would gradually grow into the village of Charleston in the township called Black River. Years later, this township would be removed from county maps because of the incorporation of the city of Lorain. Charleston adopted the county's name of Lorain when the city was incorporated in 1874. The dramatic growth of the city was spurred on by the expanding fishing and shipbuilding industries. In 1894, when Tom Johnson brought his steel mill to town, Lorain's destiny to be the county's largest city was assured. In 1813, the township of Ridgeville was officially organized. 3 years earlier, members of the Beebe, Terrell, and Root families had established this new settlement they called Rootstown. The change to Ridgeville was decided upon to indicate the sand ridges that passed through the area and provided transportation routes and fertile farmland. The area around the intersection of Butternut Ridge and Roots Road, first called Briggs Corner, was by 1880 known as Fields Corners and was the site of the town's water well. With the growth of the city of North Ridgeville, the township of Ridgeville was incorporated out of existence. In 1810, Silas Wilmot, along with Asa and Ira Morgan, erected a cabin on Butternut Ridge, and the community later called Eaton Township was begun. Wilmot married Chloe Hubbard of Ashtabula, and they were given the cabin, thereby becoming the township's pioneering couple. When Ridgeville Township was organized in 1813, it included Eaton, which was at that time called Holbrook. While the area was still a part of Cuyahoga County, the township of Eaton was separated from Ridgeville. Its first officers were elected in 1823, while the township was in transition to the new Lorain County. Amherst's township's founding can be traced to one Jacob Shoup. After first settling on the Black River, he moved in 1811 to the Beaver Creek. By 1815, he had erected a grist mill and the area's first distillery. Whiskeyville, today the intersection of Routes 58 and 113, earned its nickname as a center for the production of this important pioneer commodity. As the primary community of the township developed at the Old Spring, it came to be known as Amherst Corners. By 1836, the name Amherstville was recorded in the county offices, and in 1873, the town was incorporated as North Amherst. In 1909, the U.S. Postal Service had to choose between the villages of North and South Amherst. They chose the former, which then became the official and present-day Amherst. In 1917, in the northeast corner of the county, the township of Avon became another of Lorain County's 21 townships to vanish due to city incorporation. In 1814, Wilbur Cahoon had arrived from Montgomery County, New York, to become the first to settle in what was then Troy Township of Cuyahoga County. The farming community grew around its power source, the French Creek. Development along the interurban line would incorporate the northern part of the township into the city of Avon Lake in 1911, with the remainder of the township becoming the village of Avon in 1917. It was families such as the Burrell, Day, and Roots who established themselves in the Sheffield area in 1815 and 16. The township of Sheffield would not actually be created until 1824, when the newly elected Lorain County Commissioners made the township one of the first acts of their administration. The land had been primarily in Cuyahoga County prior to the 1822 reorganization. The southwest corner of the township was in Huron County and is today the only place to find a small section still called Sheffield Township. The remainder of the area has been incorporated, like its neighbor Avon, with the north becoming Sheffield Lake and the south the village of Sheffield. In 1816, Colonel Henry Brown of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, purchased a large tract of land known as Number 6, Range 19. Mr. Brown would later name the township after himself by simply adding Helm to his family name. Like the Old Saxon Ham, the suffix meant home. The Deacon Shepherd family were the first settlers when they arrived on July 4, 1817. The village of Brownhelm Mills, located in Benjamin Bacon's Mill Hollow, was one of 3 communities to develop. Bacon's Corners, or the center, was 3 miles east of the hollow, while just west of the hollow was Rugby, where stores, a church, a school, and the post office were located. The first settlers to the Grafton Township area were Jonathan and Grendall Rawson in 1816. 10 years later, the Rawsons were forced to build a grist mill, or forfeit their land under their original agreement with the Western Reserve Land Company. Railroads and quarries were the greatest influence on the growth of the village the locals called Rawsonville. The quarrying industry in particular was responsible for the influx of French-Canadian, Welsh, Irish, Polish, and German immigrants. In 1877, when the village was being incorporated, the name Rawsonville was dropped in favor of the railroad station name of Grafton. Originally a part of Elyria Township, Carlisle was settled in 1816 by John Bacon of Windham County, Vermont. When the new Lorain County was being organized in 1822, Carlisle Township became its own entity. LaPorte developed as the township village with Phineas Johnson as the first postmaster and hotel owner. In 1840, Anson Brayman's Carlisle Nursery became the first of its kind in Lorain County. Quarrying was another important industry of the township, as the sandstone blocks were used for city buildings as far away as Toronto. Founding father Heman Ely owned over 10,000 acres of the land that would be developed into the township of Elyria, and the city, which also bears his family name. In 1817, Artemus Beebe headed a work crew that came to establish a new village at the Y of the Black River branches. Mills were constructed and the main street cleared. Beebe's crew also erected a home for Mr. Ely at Broad and East Bridge Streets, and a home for himself across the street, which became the Beebe Tavern. Both structures avoided demolition until well into the 20th century. In 1822, Mr. Ely spearheaded the movement to create Lorain County. He donated the land for the county courthouse, thus influencing the choice of Elyria as the county seat. Mr. Ely's little village would develop into a city with a varied industrial base as well as the center of government for Lorain County. Simon Durand came to America as an interpreter for Revolutionary War hero French General Lafayette. Durand remained in the new nation and in the winter of 1817 moved from New York State to the 160 acres he had purchased south of Brownhelm. 10 years later, the population of the area was enough to support the formation of a new township. With the southern portion ceded to Brighton and the northern portion annexed from Brownhelm, the township of Henrietta was created in 1827. Although New England families represented the majority of settlers to the area in 1818, one of the pioneers was William Welling of Montgomery County, New York. History is not clear if the community was named in honor of Welling or for the famous English Duke of Wellington, hero of Europe's recent Napoleonic Wars. With the coming of the railroad, Wellington grew into an agricultural marketplace, and in fact was the nation's leader in cheese production from 1870 to 1900. The county fair, now located in Wellington, helps to continue the depiction of small-town America shown in native son Archibald Willard's famous painting, The Spirit of '76. In 1818, Joseph Sage and the family of his son-in-law, John Laborie, journeyed through a severe winter from Connecticut to their new homestead in Huntington Township. More pioneering families came to the area, and by 1822, the population was such that the Medina County Commissioners incorporated the township, using the Huntington, Connecticut hometown of many of the settlers as its new name. Lumber, grain, and cheese dominated the local economy. In 1824, when Lorain County came into full operation, Huntington was transferred from Medina County. The citizens of Old Russia Township, that had been first settled in 1818, requested detachment from Black River Township in 1825. The town and college of Oberlin were founded in 1833 and would grow to dominate the area. The Oberlin concept combined a Christian community and a Christian coeducational institute. Through the influence of founders John Shippard and Philo Stewart, New York businessman Arthur Tappan, and noted evangelist Charles Finney, the college would become not only co-ed, but also multiracial, and the nation's leader in the abolitionist movement. The independent spirit that created the first Russia Township was evident once again in 1992, as New Russia Township detached itself from Oberlin. In 1820, the Peter Penfield family began the permanent settlement of the area he had first selected in the fall of 1818. Penfield Township's organizational election was held in April of 1825. The first religious service was held in 1826, and the first school was in session in the summer of 1829. The township's first post office put the emphasis on post and not the office. As the Penfields lived well off the established mail route, a hollow tree near the river was used by the local residents for sending and receiving the mail. The township, with its fertile soil, grew into a part of Lorain County's rich agricultural heritage. In the fall of 1820, Abner Loveland Jr. became the first permanent settler of Brighton. Within a year, the families of Joseph Kingsbury and Abner Loveland Sr. had arrived, and the new community began to grow. With elections held in the spring of 1823, Brighton Township was being organized at the same time the area was being transferred from Medina to Lorain County. Like much of the new county, Brighton was essentially agricultural. Although Pittsfield's first settlers arrived in 1813, the area was considered too dangerous because of the British and Indian activity connected to the War of 1812. By 1820, the land was surveyed, and Milton Whitney became the owner of a large parcel. Whitney arranged for the Waite brothers of Russia Township to become the first permanent settlers in the spring of 1821. By 1831, there were enough residents to request that the county incorporate a township independent of Wellington. Pittsfield was chosen as the township's name to honor the Massachusetts hometown of many of the area's pioneers. LaGrange Township's first settler was Nathan Clark, who in the fall of 1825 established his new homestead on the east branch of the Black River. By the summer of 1826, 14 more settlers had arrived. The name LaGrange, which is French for the farm, was chosen to honor French General Lafayette, as it was also the name of his country estate. In 1827, the area was separated from Carlisle Township and reorganized with elections in April into the new township of LaGrange. By 1875, the center had grown into a village, also incorporated as LaGrange. The pioneer settler of the Camden area was Leonard Clark. Over the next 4 years, other families moved into the area, including Roswell Babcocks, who built the first frame house in 1833. Early on, the area was divided between Henrietta and Brighton townships. In 1835, the new township of Camden was created by the county commissioners, and the first elections held in April of 1836. When the first post office was established in 1835, the community was called Panelise. The name was changed to Camden, then later to North Camden. In 1852, the Lake Shore and Michigan Southern Railroad called its station Binghamton, but that was soon changed as the town adopted the name Kipton. Kipton's more important connection to the railroad was a tragic collision in 1891. The wreck was instrumental in the creation of standardized or railroad time. Rochester was the last township within the present-day boundaries of Lorain County to be settled. Stephen Babcock brought his family from Massachusetts in the spring of 1832 to settle on land he had prepared the previous year. The area grew quickly, and by 1835, the commissioners formed a new township with the first elections held in April of 1836. The township's farming and related businesses grew with the population. By 1880, close to 700 citizens lived in the area. The population shifted from Rochester Center to Rochester Station when the Big Four Railroad came through the township. The small-town boom would turn to bust when the railroad eliminated Rochester as a scheduled stop. The depot would be used as a schoolhouse, as the home of the Rochester Rod and Gun Club, and today as the home of the Rochester Historical Society.
you.